For some quick context, I made a video discussing why I believe the Nintendo Switch 2 won't happen and that if it does, it will fail. And while many people disagree, some go to lengths of writing essays with flawed reasoning that I couldn't disagree with more. One day I was just relaxing on my chair, playing some Tears of the Kingdom, thinking about life, and then I have to make a new video soon. Then I remembered, I have a comment section to read. I stumbled upon a comment of someone replying to someone else, saying, "Imagine harassing and attacking someone for telling the truth and showing evidence." So I look at the comment he was replying to, and it says, quote, "Do your research, bozo." Now when I read this, I was thinking to myself, okay, it's just some random hater. But once I saw another comment of his, I realized, oh no, this is no ordinary hater. This guy has been consistently spreading negativity into my comment section because on almost every comment, you can see him saying something hateful in the replies. In these replies, he claims I was ducking him and that he had debunked all of my points. So I began searching around my comment section on my Switch 2 video, and I found absolutely nothing. It wasn't until I searched his name specifically that his comment came up. So I found his 24 paragraph long comment, read all of that, and in every paragraph I found something I disagree with. A day after writing the script for this video, the guy has continued on and on bothering in the comments. He's even using a second account now too. At first he was saying the same thing the other account said, and then someone called him out for it, and his argument was that saying he's using a second account is a coping mechanism. After that, there's a third account that fights for him, and I can't tell if it's him or one of his friends. Just read these comments with me. You gonna reply to that other dude yet? How about you leave him alone? You can't dog on people posting that cringe hose mad and not expect criticism. Go to sleep, sensitive, chronically online kid. Oh my gosh, I can't even read this. I can't even read this. No, you know what? I'm done. You read this for yourself. There really are people like this in the world. Not only do you make a 24 paragraph comment combating my argument, but because I didn't see it, you decide to comment multiple times on one video as if you have nothing better to do and rely on me to reply to your terrible argument to feel satisfied in life. So in today's video, we will be dissecting his comment paragraph by paragraph for all of you out there who are interested in the Nintendo Switch 2 debate. Let us begin with his first paragraph. For his starting paragraph, he states, "Your points make no sense. Before I even get into it, if the OLED Switch was profitable, then why wouldn't the Switch 2 be? You said all PlayStation and Xboxes are different. Why wouldn't that be the case with the Switch 2? It's the revision of the previous console." Okay, great. We're starting off with the worst point possible that my entire video discussed. You say the Switch 2 would be profitable because of the Switch OLED success. So let's see how profitable the OLED really was, to show that using it as an example would be wrong. To do the math for how many OLEDs have been sold in comparison to normal Switches, I had to find how many of each variant were sold, and I've run into an issue looking for the answers. After looking all around the web for how many Switch Lites have been sold, I found conflicting results. Wikipedia says it sold 13.53 million by December 31st, 2020, and 18.4 million by March 31st, 2022. However, on Nintendo Life it says the Lite sold 2 million units in 2022 at a 37% decrease from 2021, meaning it sold 3.17 million in the previous year. But it doesn't add up. 13.53 plus 3.17 plus 2 is 18.7. which would mean the console only sold 300,000 units from April 1st to December 31st in 2022, which I don't think happened. In search for more information, I stumbled upon another website discussing the sales, and their numbers don't even add up. It says the total sales are 125.62 million, the normal selling 94.8, the Lite selling 23.02, and the OLED selling 22.71. But if we add all those numbers up, you get 140.53, which is 15 million units off. This just goes to show that no matter what the internet says, you have to dive deeper. I made a whole entire math lesson explaining how the Switch has sold way more units per day than the OLED, but because of all the conflicting numbers that I've read, I'm just not going to compare them. So I'm just gonna say this. The OLED is profitable, sure, but it's profitable under the Switch title, not as a sequel. You used the OLED as an example to say the Switch 2 would be successful. But to that I say this, my entire prediction was that a Switch 2 wouldn't happen because it would sell less than its predecessor. So where is your solid evidence that the OLED has sold better or at least on par with the Switch in comparison of both lifetime sales? Your second point doesn't make any sense. These are all game consoles. Kids play games, just like Xbox and PlayStation. And even still, your point is still false. The Switch's main demographic is 20 to 30 years old, source being GameRanks, with lower amounts in the less than 5 years old range. Perfect. Just perfect. This time we have a source. So let's take a look at what it has to say. I read the entire article, and it doesn't state anything about how they got this information. It came from Nintendo, sure, but how do they know exactly that the people using this console are of that age range? Your source of proof states, in a chart posted by the company, they revealed that the average most played age range for a Switch owner is between 20 to 30 years old. The chart also shows that the 20 to 25-year-old age range is the highest spike. The piece of evidence you provided here is completely flawed. The only way to know the age of players on a system is by the age given when creating a Nintendo account. And that's the whole issue with this chart. People lie about their age due to the restrictions given for being under 18. And to prove this point further, when I was just 13 years old, I made a Nintendo account claiming to be born in the year 2000 because it was an easy date to remember and they would already be above 18. The funny thing about this year is that people actually born in the year 2000 would be 23 years old. So I don't think it's a coincidence that the spike in age is at 20 to 25. If we look back at this guy's comment, you can see that he says there are lower amounts in the age range less than 5 years old. Well, who could have guessed? There are less Nintendo Kid accounts? You mean the accounts that have to be made with a parent account already on the console? Gee, I wonder why. It's almost like the parents of these children don't give a damn what account they use and make their own account to let their kid play on it instead of dealing with the hassle of making two. Third point is that it will be viewed as the same as terrible. The main reason people want to Switch 2 is because of the power and quality, not that complicated. Since the range is 20 to 30, most of them would be, if not interested, aware of the upgrade and won't view it as a pointless revision. If Nintendo knew that the majority of people don't care about a new Switch, then there wouldn't be an OLED or a Lite. I've already broken his point about the age range being 20 to 30, so I'll just combat his first point instead. He states here that the main reason people want to Switch 2 is for power and quality. So let me explain what I've been saying this whole entire time. The majority of consumers, also known as the casual gamers and kids, do not give a shit about whether the console has 1080p resolution or 4K. Most people, and kids especially, hardly even notice the difference between 60 frames per second and 30, as do I. It's like if I showed tiny amounts of input lag to a normal human being and then to a video game speedrunner. Only one of them would notice. He then says, if Nintendo knew that the majority of people don't care about a new Switch, then there wouldn't be an OLED or a Lite. Whoa there, buddy. You think the people at Nintendo don't know that the majority doesn't care about a new Switch? One thing in particular shows that they know, and it's that the Switch OLED and Lite are variants, not sequels to the console. It's like the Game Boy Advance SP, the DSi, and all those variants of the 3DS. They weren't made to surpass the sales of the normal console, they're just there to slightly improve on the hardware so that the console can get a slight boost in profit by the little who do care, and by the new people that have a preference in the way they play. Let me explain. There's a person out there who wants to buy a Nintendo Switch because all their friends have one, and he wants to have fun and play with them. He goes to the store and sees 3 different versions: a handheld only, a normal console, and a slightly better version of the console. He's just there to buy a Switch. Doesn't matter which one exactly, because he just wants to play with his buddies. So what does he do? He'll pick the one that matches his preference. If he's broke, he might consider the Switch Lite, but probably end up buying a normal Switch to play docked. If he's not broke and prefers the visual appeal and power, he'll purchase the OLED. What I'm saying here is, he'll buy whatever console is to his preference, but ultimately he only cares about one thing: having a Switch to play its games with his friends. Once a normal person like this has a Switch, do you think they'll go to the store to buy another one just because it has better graphics? They're not gonna waste their money like that. Fourth, they don't have to implement a new gimmick to make sales. That's just Nintendo's thing. The Tegra X1 was 2 years old before the Switch, so the modern upgrade could be the gimmick alone. That's all people want. A new Tegra chip is by no means a gimmick. It would be a necessity for a Switch 2. You said if they upgraded it, it wouldn't be able to compete. That literally makes no sense. The Switch was released, majorly underpowered compared to the 4-year-old PS4 and 1-year-old PS4 Pro, yet it still sold more units, so that point is invalid. Also, the PS4 Pro sold well, so why wouldn't a Switch 2? I'm getting tired of repeating myself. Your average consumer doesn't give a damn about modern upgrades. And with Nintendo always being behind PlayStation and Xbox, it wouldn't be anything for the power nerds to drool over either. You use the reason that the Switch did good when it was underpowered in 2017, but you literally just forgot that the whole reason it got sales was because of the new gimmick that was playing handheld and on TV. That gimmick won't be new or as appealing anymore in 2024, 2025, or whenever you think the next console is coming out. Fifth is that a boost in price puts sales down, and you put an already failed Wii U as an example. They marketed wrong. The OLED had an increase in price and did fine. You pay for what you get. If power and quality is increased, so is value. Yes, a boost in price makes sales go down. I did put the failed Wii U as an example because the retail price for a Wii U with 32 gigabytes was set at $350. I know they marketed wrong, but I still saw it as fit. You say the OLED had an increase and did fine, but that's the problem. It did fine, not amazing, not exceptional, and not incredible. You say you pay for what you get, and that if the power and quality is increased, so is value. Well, the OLED had a $50 increase, and the only improvements that it has that matter are the screen changes and the Ethernet port. Are those really worth the extra $50? Sixth point is more quality doesn't equal sales. Quality is a main feature on revisions. 8K compatibility is right on the PS5 box. It's a main feature, but you're missing the fact that the main point is more quality means you have more power. More power is more games. You also said kids wouldn't know the difference between resolution upgrades. Point disproven, the main demographic is 20 to 30. Just because Switch has family-friendly games doesn't mean only children will play it. If that was the case, only adults would play Call of Duty. I'm sorry, but your grammar is so bad on the first sentence, I don't even know what you're saying. So I'll just combat what I do understand from this paragraph. After the mumbo jumbo, you say more quality means you have more power. More power is more games. Alright, then let's assume the Switch 2 will be on par with the Xbox and PlayStation, because you're saying more power means more games, as in third-party support. All these new-gen games focus on absolutely insane visuals, so the Switch 2 would have to have 4K capabilities with 120 frames per second. This kind of power would cost Nintendo a lot more just to get the components for it. Let's not even discuss all the technical issues they'd have with fitting all that power in such a small console. The high production cost would make it so they can't put any kind of profit margin, because the price would look more absurd than it already is. Both Microsoft and Sony sell their consoles at a loss to keep their consumers happy, and yet even some still complain about its pricing. Nintendo's been around $300 for a long time now, and while inflation has decreased that number's value a ton, they still manage to keep it around that price point. Imagine what a $500 Nintendo console would look like to your average consumer. Would they really spend all that money? I think it's just a lose-lose situation. Nintendo would be selling at a loss with a high price, and the high price would be causing people to turn away. Now, there are definitely lots of people okay with spending $500 on a game console, but Nintendo's gotten the attention of those who aren't. So the majority of people would most likely be split, causing the sales of the Switch 2 to be, as I predicted, mediocre. The problem with sales being less than its predecessor is that the games that'll be released on that console will have less sales as well, because you have less people buying your console. Take Mario Kart 8 for example. On the Switch, it sold more than 50 million copies, but on the Wii U, it sold 8.46 million. Now, if you think this is because of the tiny improvements put into Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, shut the fuck up. Nobody bought the game because you were able to hold 2 items or because of the third power boost. The reason it sold so little on the Wii U is because there were only 13 million Wii U console units sold, in comparison to the Switch's 122 million. Next, you use the argument that the users mainly consist of 20 to 30 year olds, which I've already proven wrong. Please stop using this as your argument. You follow up with a statement saying, just because Switch has family-friendly games doesn't mean only children will play it. If that's the case, only adults would play Call of Duty. While I agree with you on this, I would like to point out that because the Switch is family friendly, parents are more likely to buy it for their kid, thus the idea that Nintendo is for kids. Just that it is simply suitable for them. You keep talking about the necessity of a gimmick, but it doesn't need a new gimmick, it's a Switch. That's the gimmick, it's just an upgrade. Seventh point is that an upgrade isn't enough to make it sell well. The Switch is 7 years old, an upgrade is enough. Sony and Microsoft do that every console. New exclusives, graphics, and power. Get this, games with no gimmicks. So again, the point is invalid. Didn't we already go over this? Here his arguments begin to make no sense. His 9th paragraph in this essay states, and I quote, "8th point is that you will buy the Switch 2 anyway? Are you crazy? Are you being sarcastic? You know Nintendo is a company that likes to make profit. They make consoles to sell, not break records. Nintendo fans buy anything Nintendo." Dude, what's your problem? I like Nintendo. How does that make me crazy or make you think I'm being sarcastic? Like, did you forget this was a Nintendo channel? The rest of his arguments from this point forward are so bad that any one of my subscribers could probably guess what my counter argument would be. So instead of continuing as we've been, I'll be responding with little to no words. Your comment has 3 points and bruh, you should have left that in the drafts. First is that the Wii died. What are you even talking about? Everything dies. That's why second versions are a thing. Like, come on. 2 is that the people who had a Wii moved on. I'm convinced you're being sarcastic. You have to be joking. If that's the case, then why would the second version of anything exist? So the Mario movie shouldn't exist because people who played Mario in 1985 have moved on? Using that logic, nothing would exist. There are constant new audiences for anything and everything. Third is they wouldn't buy the same thing. Once again, if that's the case, second versions of anything wouldn't exist. Are you trolling me? I'm talking about consoles here. The analogy that the Mario movie shouldn't exist because people played Mario in 1985 is a stretch. Mario is a video game franchise, and you know that. People who had a Wii clearly did move on, because if they didn't, the Wii U wouldn't have sold so bad even with the bad marketing. You then say there are constant new audiences for anything and everything. Yes, there are, but it's not about the audience's existence. It's about how many people are actually in that audience. How many people are in the market for a renovation of something they already own? Not many, I'll tell you that. After this, he says something that I should probably address. You then chose to contradict yourself and say that PS1 to PS2 was major because of a graphic increase, which is the main reason people want to Switch 2. To anyone who's watched my Switch 2 video, you know that in the imagining the Switch 2 portion, I state that the jump in graphics are barely noticeable anymore. The jump from SNES to N64, N64 to GameCube, anything from composite to HD were the biggest jumps in graphics to date. 1080p to 4K or 30 frames to 60 is unnoticeable by the majority that consists of normal people. I'm going to skim through the rest because I'm actually mentally exhausted from reading all this, so if you want to see the entirety of the comment, I will show you it here for your reading. You literally have no idea how business works. These companies don't aim to get more units sold than the previous system. They aim for profit. You're so ignorant of what you are confidently talking about. They won't make much profit if they get less console sales, because that leads to less game sales. You then chose to make the biggest contradiction to mankind. You just debunked, counterclaimed, and embarrassed yourself in one sentence. You're so simple-minded, it's unbelievable. Your ignorance and pure fallacy is fascinating. Dude, just state your argument. There's no need to write down all these insults. You listed several reasons why the Switch was so bland and lackluster compared to any other console, and yet it sold 122 million units. You have exceeded my expectations. I thought there was a limit. There is none. And the cherry on top is that if they added all of those features, it would make it even better. Once again, contradicting yourself. I'm going to have to break it down since I know you're just completely unaware and haven't developed theory of mind yet. Less features / blandness doesn't mean fewer sales. You just confirmed it yourself. All the people want is something that works fine and plays games better than before, which means more sales, which brings us full circle. Why wouldn't the Switch 2 make any sense? For those who don't know, he's talking about this part in my video. The Switch, just like Breath of the Wild, took Nintendo's formula and threw it out the window by making things more bland. 2 themes, either black or white, no editing of the home screen, no party chat, no communication like Miiverse, and the eShop feels so dead. The only way I see a Switch 2 being marketed well and taken well by the public is if they fix all of this and showcase it, and include a good gimmick that isn't necessary if you don't want it to be. I actually love that he ended off with this. It makes for a good ending to my video. I state that the console itself and one game on it have parts to it that are boring, because the Switch doesn't have home menu music and Breath of the Wild has its boring time. times. That's not contradicting, that's just me talking about small boring details of the Switch. Most people overlook this and don't even notice it because it's nothing of importance. Yes, the Switch sold 122 million units. I never said a Switch 2 wouldn't sell just because it didn't have home menu music. The console gimmick and its games are new and fun. That's the part of it that appeals to people. I was expressing my boredom in the Switch that I found after using it for so long. Quick editor's note. In that video of the Nintendo Switch 2 leaks are wrong, I say that the only way I see a Switch 2 succeeding is if they fix all of those minor tweaks. I would like to revoke my statement because the people overlook and don't care about all that anyway. So for a Switch 2 to sell, it's more about the gimmick and not about having home menu music or having eShop music or having games that are less boring at times. To the random guy in my comments, thank you for allowing me to use your points to make another video surrounding this topic. Hopefully you understand more or realize that your arguments aren't that well thought out. And while I don't mean to be rude, I think that because of all the insults you've typed, I'm allowed to say that your arguments are bad. Something I want you all to understand and learn from these videos I make are that these are just opinions I formed based on my knowledge and understanding of information that I've collected through my own experiences and from information I've collected from the internet. Another thing to note is that the future is unpredictable and that you should always be open to anything. That's why I still believe a Switch 2 is possible, because Nintendo could just say, fuck it, let's see what happens. Lots of people in my comments, including the guy we've been discussing about this whole entire time, seem to forget that things like these don't actually matter. We're discussing a Nintendo console, and you're in the comments being pissed off and wasting your time, spending your days on the internet, thinking, typing, and responding to arguments about a potential Nintendo console. Grab onto your balls, go outside, and do something with your life. Think about it this way. Me making these videos, I get views, I entertain others, and I receive gratitude, fans, ad revenue, and tons of new information from all kinds of people all over the world. You know what you get from doing this? You get pissed off, you waste your time trying to argue with me, and you maybe receive a couple likes and replies that ultimately lead to nothing but more discussion and wasted time. While we have our own opinions on what Nintendo will do, because of how Nintendo is, you could never be so sure. I believe it's more logical to make something completely new and unique, to grab the attention and interest of the casual audience that Nintendo appeals to. But some people in my comments believe that Nintendo should just listen to the few millions that want a Switch upgrade. No matter the opinion, we shouldn't be wasting our time spreading negativity, especially if it's because someone else believes something different will happen in the future. It doesn't make you ignorant, blind, stupid, or simple-minded to have a different prediction based on logical reasoning. To the viewers who stayed to the end, thank you for sticking with me and listening. I hope at least some of you enjoyed. Thank you all for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next video.